This week on Choice Hacking. In 1997, a marketing genius named Sidney Frank created a luxury spirits brand that went from $0 in sales to selling for $2 billion in an all-cash deal to Bacardi in only 8 years. The brand? Grey Goose vodka. And its creation, well, it is a masterclass in using the power of story, emotion, psychological pricing, salient social proof, and context clues to craft an irresistible brand out of a liquor that tastes like, well, nothing. I'm Jennifer Clinehens, and you're listening to Choice Hacking, a podcast about applying behavioral science and psychology to business, marketing, experience design, and more. Join me today as we unpack the psychology behind the creation and launch of Grey Goose vodka and how it became one of the fastest growing and most profitable vodka brands of all time. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Choice Hacking Training. Did you know that Choice Hacking isn't just a podcast? We're also an e-learning platform, a marketing consulting firm, and we do a lot of corporate training that can get your teams using the power of behavioral science, psychology, and AI to drive your bottom line. Choice Hacking training clients tend to be medium or large-sized businesses, but we work with brands of all sizes. We can help your employees learn the nuts and bolts of applied behavioral science, become more persuasive presenters using psychology and predictive AI, and even polish their leadership skills with the power of evidence-based approaches. Sound interesting? Just visit choicehacking.com/training to learn more. That's choicehacking.com/training. Now on to the show. You might not know Sidney Frank's name, but you definitely know his products. Brands like Jägermeister and Corazon Tequila. He was born in 1919, and he grew up a poor farmer's kid in Connecticut. Frank managed to get into Brown University, but he had to drop out when he couldn't afford to pay tuition. But Frank was resourceful, for better or for worse, and he married a rich woman whose father owned a successful liquor business, and there he learned the tools of the trade. Sidney eventually left the family business to make his mark with his own spirits brand, but it was not an instant success. In fact, he almost went bankrupt several times over. Frank did eventually hit pay dirt when he discovered German-American immigrants drinking a strong licorice-flavored drink called Jägermeister, which up until that point was a niche after-dinner ritual. Frank built a brand around Jaeger, and it became a favorite of hard-partying college students at LSU, Louisiana State University. And the rest is history, and a headache, and some fuzzy undergraduate memories. But after the success of Jaeger, Sidney Frank was looking for bigger fish to fry. And by now, it was the 1990s.
While Samantha had little belief in the idea of happily ever after, she had a very strong belief in the idea of a smart cocktail at the end of the workday. Samantha, a cosmopolitan, and Donald Trump. You just don't get more New York than that.
As you can hear from the 90s cultural phenomenon that was Sex and the City, American drinking trends in the 90s were moving away from beer and into more sophisticated cocktails. So Frank decided that a luxury vodka would be his next big enterprise. When Sidney Frank founded Grey Goose, the fanciest vodka on the market was Absolute, famous for its iconic bottle and its advertising. And Absolute was expensive. In 1996, it sold for between $15 and $17 a bottle. And at the time, that was considered an outrageous amount of money to pay for a single bottle of vodka. But Sidney Frank knew he'd have to steal some of Absolute's premium market share for his new brand to be a success. So what did he do? Well, a more short-sighted marketer might have undercut Absolute and charged maybe $10 a bottle. But Frank knew the psychological power of pricing. So he decided to just sidestep all the competition and charge an eye-watering $30 a bottle. This worked because of two psychological principles. First, a rational value assessment says that people don't value products objectively. Instead, we figure out how much something should cost based on context clues and how they make us feel. It's why Starbucks can charge $6 for basically the same cup of coffee that McDonald's can charge only $2 for. Next, the price-quality effect says that a high price for certain types of products can signal high quality, and that people often assume higher-priced products are higher quality. You see, price isn't just a number. It tells a story about your product. And as powerful a psychological signal that price is, Frank knew you couldn't rely on people to buy something just because it was expensive. Sidney Frank knew that if he wanted to charge $30 a bottle for his vodka, he'd need a product story that was interesting, distinct from other vodka brands, and that screamed luxury and sophistication, two things that vodka wasn't exactly known for at the time. Sidney Frank was looking for signals and symbols of luxury to make Grey Goose worthy of its $30 price tag. So he gathered his team at his company headquarters in New Rochelle, New York, and he told them to go to the country best known for luxury and sophistication and bring back a vodka. That's right, Sidney Frank sent his team to France, a country that didn't even have a vodka distillery in it. Instead, his team met with cognac distillers whose business had slowed down. The distillers needed something different to distill, so they happily switched the stills over and began creating the world's first French vodka. Now Frank had a compelling backstory for Grey Goose. It uses water from French springs that have been filtered through Champagne limestone. It costs double the price of any other luxury vodka, so you know it has to be good. But Frank still needed a product experience that would create an atmosphere of luxury and sophistication, and that got people to try a brand new product in an environment that didn't really reward salesmanship, clubs and bars. First, Frank worked with designers to create a big, beautiful, distinctive frosted bottle that's really easy to notice when it's sitting on a shelf behind the bartender. To convince bartenders Grey Goose was worth the money, he didn't just send out naked bottles and flimsy cardboard boxes like other spirit brands. Instead, Sidney Frank shipped Grey Goose in the same wood crates that fine wine was shipped in, creating a luxury feel with context clues and cultural signals. To get consumers to try Grey Goose, Sidney Frank knew he had to tell the story of luxury and sophistication to the right people. So he started putting ads in places like the Wall Street Journal, where he knew the customer was affluent and actively looking for ways to tell everyone around them, even subtly, that they were doing better than the other guy. Frank also knew the importance of nightlife influencers. So he got Grey Goose into the hottest clubs in the US and into the hands of the most interesting, trend-setting people. He knew that those people, influencers in the truest sense, would be happy to share the Grey Goose story because it made them look interesting and sophisticated. And that's exactly what happened. But then, the 90s cultural equivalent of a bomb dropped. At the height of Sex and the City mania, the girls ordered a Grey Goose Cosmo. Remember, this is a time before social media, so being featured on the most popular show on television and, at the time, a true cultural phenomenon was a huge deal. And that sealed it. The people that mattered had bought into Grey Goose, and the rest of the world began using it as a way to signal that they were just as sophisticated as Charlotte, as successful as Miranda, as stylish as Carrie, and as adventurous as Samantha. Well, maybe just with their drinks. Thank you for listening to the Choice Hacking Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on social media. It takes me 20 plus hours to put together every episode. It is a huge help when you share an episode with your followers. And don't forget, you can learn more about behavioral science and psychology applied to business when you subscribe to the free Choice Hacking newsletter. You'll join more than 8,000 brilliant UX, CX, and marketing folks from companies like Google, Coke, and Disney who get my newsletter. To sign up, just visit choicehacking.com/subscribe. That's choicehacking.com/subscribe. Until next time.
That money clip us now, that new now looks like, whoa, upgrade her diamonds. I hit record it, drop, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always boarding. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for